Paddington echo. A call from an unknown number stirs a decade-old memory, a lost love, and unanswered questions. As Leo is pulled back into the past, will he find Chloe or just face more heartbreak? Part 1. The Unexpected Echo. The London night had settled, a familiar blanket of distant traffic hum and the occasional siren, a soundtrack to Leo's meticulously ordered life. In his apartment, a space that felt a little too neat, a little too quiet, he sat on his sofa, the cool glow of his phone illuminating a face etched with a subtle, almost melancholic wariness. A half-eaten takeaway container sat beside him, forgotten as he scrolled aimlessly, adrift in the digital currents of the evening. His existence, carefully constructed over a decade, was one of quiet solitude, a deliberate shield against the unpredictable tides of emotion. He had built walls, not of brick, but of routine and detachment, believing he had successfully buried the ghosts of a past that had once consumed him. Then his phone buzzed, a jarring vibration against his palm, an anonymous number. He hesitated, a fleeting thought of a misdelivered order or a telemarketer, before answering. "Hello," he uttered, his voice flat, devoid of expectation. A soft, slightly hesitant female voice, unfamiliar, yet possessing an almost ethereal quality, drifted through the line. "Is this the bakery? I need to confirm an order for." Leo frowned, a flicker of annoyance. "I think you have the wrong number. This isn't a bakery." A pause, then a small, almost imperceptible intake of breath from the other end. "Oh, I'm so sorry. My mistake." She sounded about to hang up, the brief impersonal exchange drawing to a close. But then, just as Leo prepared to disconnect, a sudden, almost desperate question, a mere whisper, sliced through the carefully maintained calm of his evening. "But do you remember the winter in Paddington?" The words hit Leo like a physical blow, a shock wave reverberating through his entire being. His hand tightened around the phone, knuckles white. The half-eaten food, the mundane evening, vanished from his awareness. His eyes, which had been distant, almost vacant, snapped into sharp, agonizing focus, a flicker of raw pain and undeniable recognition igniting within them. The winter in Paddington. The phrase was a key, unlocking a vault he had painstakingly sealed. It conjured a torrent of images he desperately tried to bury for a decade. The gentle snow clinging to ancient brickwork, the scent of cinnamon and coffee from a tiny, beloved bakery, the shared scarves, the warmth of a hand intertwined with his, and her, Chloe, the girl who had been his world, his first love, who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the cold, silent ache of unanswered questions. Who is this?" Leo choked out, his voice a raw, desperate whisper, barely audible above the frantic pounding of his own heart. But the line was dead. The female voice, the phantom from his past, was gone. Leo stared at his phone, the anonymous number mocking him from the screen. He tried to call back, over and over, but each attempt was met with the cold, impersonal tone of a voicemail. He stood up, walked to the window, looking out at the glittering tapestry of city lights that usually brought him a sense of detached peace. Now, his orderly world felt suddenly, irrevocably broken. The past, a ghost he thought he'd outrun, had just called, and its echo resonated through every fiber of his being, promising a turmoil he hadn't anticipated, and a pain he had never truly healed. Part 2. ghosts of Paddington. But it's so beautiful, isn't it? And Leo, utterly captivated, would squeeze her hand, his heart overflowing. More beautiful with you. Their journey would often lead them to a small, independent bakery, its windows fogged with warmth, spilling the irresistible scent of fresh bread and cinnamon onto the cold street. Chloe's eyes would widen with delight. Oh, look, they have those gingerbread men we love. Inside, the bakery was a haven of cozy intimacy, filled with the comforting aroma of spices and hot coffee. They'd share a single gingerbread man, breaking off pieces for each other, sipping hot chocolate, their knees brushing under the small, worn table. In those moments, their eyes would meet, and a silent understanding, a deep, comfortable love, would pass between them, needing no words. I wish winter in Paddington could last forever, Chloe had once whispered, her voice soft with contentment. And Leo, so sure of their future, had smiled. It will, for us. Later, they would find themselves in Paddington Park, sitting on a snow-covered bench, sharing a single large scarf, its woolly warmth a symbol of their shared existence. Chloe would lean her head on Leo's shoulder, her presence a comforting weight. I have to tell you something, she'd murmured, her voice almost lost in the gentle fall of snow. Leo had looked at her, his face alight with a gentle smile. What is it? But her expression had shifted, a fleeting flicker of sadness, of apprehension clouding her features. She'd opened her mouth, then closed it, a silent battle raging within her. Nothing, she'd finally said, forcing a bright, almost painful smile. Just I love you. I love you too, Leo had replied, completely unaware of the precipice they stood on. More than anything, the memory fade, the anonymous call, that fleeting echo from the past, had not just shattered Leo's carefully constructed present. It had ignited an obsessive, desperate search. His London apartment, usually a bastion of order, now reflected the chaos within his mind. Old photo albums lay scattered across the coffee table, their brittle pages revealing faded smiles and long-buried memories. Dusty boxes, unearthed from forgotten corners, yielded forgotten trinkets and letters. Laptop screens glowed, displaying endless search results, each one a dead end. He scoured every social media platform he could think of, typed Chloe's full name, Chloe Davis, into countless search bars, only to be met with a frustrating deluge of strangers, none of them his Chloe. The digital world, so vast and interconnected, felt impossibly small when searching for a ghost. He unearthed an old email address, one he hadn't touched in years, a relic from a time when their communication had been effortless. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly as he drafted a message. He wanted to demand answers, to scream the question that had haunted his every waking moment for a decade. Why did you leave? But the words caught in his throat, choked by lingering hurt and a deep-seated fear of rejection. He couldn't bring himself to ask. Instead, he deleted the raw, desperate plea, replacing it with a more cautious, almost deferential message. Chloe, if this is you, it's Leo. I got a call. Someone asked about Paddington. I don't know if it was you, but I hope you're well. He hit send, a potent mix of fragile hope and profound despair swirling in his chest. The anonymous number became his tormentor. He tried calling it again and again, each attempt met with the cold, impersonal tone of a voicemail. He left a short, desperate message, his voice cracking with a vulnerability he hadn't allowed himself in years. "Please, if that was you, call me back. Just tell me you're okay." The silence that followed was deafening, driven by an insatiable need to reconnect with the past. He found himself walking the familiar streets of Paddington. The old bakery, once a haven of warmth and shared secrets, was still there, but under new ownership. Its cozy charm had been replaced by a sleek, modern facade, and the gingerbread men, once their special treat, tasted different, devoid of the magic he remembered. He spoke to the new owner, a cheerful young woman, who kindly shook her head. "Oh, I'm afraid I bought this place 5 years ago. Don't know anything about previous regulars, sorry." Her words, though polite, were a fresh sting, reinforcing the irreversible passage of time. He walked out, the street feeling colder than it should, the ache in his chest intensifying. He found himself on the same park bench where they had once shared a scarf, where Chloe had almost confessed her secret. It was empty now, the snow long gone, replaced by a gray, indifferent sky. He pulled out the faded photograph again, tracing her smiling face. A strange pull, a sense that she was close, yet impossibly far, tugged at him. He wondered if the call was truly a wrong number, a cruel trick of fate, or if it had been a deliberate, silent message, a fragile thread thrown across the chasm of a decade, waiting to be pulled. The uncertainty was agonizing, but the hope, however faint, was a dangerous, intoxicating lure. Part 4. The Thread of Fate. Days bled into a restless, agonizing week. Leo's apartment, once a sanctuary of quiet order, now felt like a cage, amplifying the gnawing uncertainty that had consumed him since the anonymous call. He was a man adrift, unable to focus on work, sleep, or anything beyond the phantom echo of Chloe's voice. His phone remained a constant companion, its silent screen a cruel reminder of the unanswered questions. Then, just as despair threatened to fully engulf him, a notification chimed. An email. His heart leaped, a frantic bird trapped in his chest. The sender's address was unfamiliar, yet the name, Chloe, sent a jolt of electrifying hope through him. His hands trembled as he clicked open the message. The words on the screen were a lifeline, a confirmation that shattered the decade of silence. "Leo, I can't believe it's you. Yes, it was me. A wrong number. I was trying to call my old bakery in Paddington, but I must have misdialed. I heard your voice and I just had to ask. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have." A wave of profound relief washed over him, quickly followed by a fresh surge of old pain. She was alive, she was real, and she was apologizing. His fingers flew across the keyboard, a torrent of questions he'd held back for so long, now pouring out. "Chloe, don't be sorry. I'm just glad to hear from you. Where are you? Why did you leave?" He hit send, the questions echoing his decade-long torment. Minutes later, another email arrived. "I'm in Sydney. I moved for family reasons." It was complicated. "I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't. I was a coward." Sydney. The word hung in the air, vast and distant, a continent separating them. His breath hitched. So far. Yet the fact that she was responding, that she was explaining, fueled a desperate hope. He typed again, his resolve hardening. "I'm in London. Can we talk? Really talk?" A long, agonizing pause followed. He stared at the screen, every second stretching into an eternity. Then, a new email. I don't know, Leo. So much has happened. So much time. A surge of desperation, raw and undeniable. Miles away, in her Sydney apartment, Chloe stared at her laptop screen. The incoming video call request from Leo, a stark, terrifying invitation. Her hand hovered over the decline button, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. A decade of carefully buried memories threatened to overwhelm her. She looked at her reflection, a stranger in her own eyes, then took a deep, shaky breath. She remembered the winter in Paddington, the unspoken words that had choked her, the sudden, necessary departure that had torn her world apart. With a silent prayer, she clicked accept. Leo's face, older but still bearing the same kind eyes, filled her screen. "Chloe," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, a decade of longing in that single word. "Leo," she replied, a small, shaky smile playing on her lips. A chasm of silence, of unanswered questions, of old hurt, stretched between them, yet the flickering screen offered a fragile, terrifying bridge to a potentially renewed connection. Part 5. The Unwritten Chapter. The flickering screen became a portal, transforming what began as a hesitant, almost awkward exchange into hours of raw, cathartic conversation. Leo and Chloe, separated by a continent and a decade of silence, poured out their hearts, sharing the fragmented pieces of their lives, the paths they had taken, and the people they had become. Chloe, tears welling in her eyes, finally revealed the painful truth she had carried for so long. Her mother's sudden, severe illness had demanded an immediate return to Australia, and her family, overwhelmed by the crisis, had pressured her to leave without a trace, to sever ties and start fresh, believing it would spare Leo the burden of their unfolding tragedy. "I was so young, Leo," she confessed, her voice thick with regret. "So scared. I thought I was protecting you, but I broke us." Leo, his own eyes wet with unshed tears, listened, the pieces of his shattered past finally clicking into place. "You broke me, Chloe," he admitted, his voice a raw whisper. "For a long time. But I never stopped wondering. Never stopped loving you." The unspoken words, the silent love that had endured through years of separation and pain, finally found their voice, bridging the chasm between them. They talked about Paddington, the magical winter that had defined their early love, the cozy bakery, the snow-covered park, the shared scarves. Each memory was revisited, now viewed through the lens of their reunion, tinged with both fondness and a lingering sadness. "Do you remember that day in the park?" Chloe asked, a sad smile playing on her lips. "I almost told you about leaving, but I couldn't. I just said I loved you." Leo nodded, the memory vivid. "I remember. I wish you had." A beat of profound silence passed between them, filled with the weight of what might have been. "What now, Leo?" Chloe finally asked, her voice fragile, uncertain. After all this time, Leo looked at her, truly seeing her, not just the ghost of his past, but the resilient, beautiful woman she had become. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice firm with a new resolve. "But I know I can't let you disappear again." Months later, the London air, though not as crisp as a Paddington winter, held a familiar promise of change. Leo sat on the same park bench, the one that had witnessed their youthful dreams and his solitary despair. This time, however, his smile was genuine, hopeful, a light that had been rekindled. He held his phone, a simple message on the screen. "Just landed. See you soon. See." He looked up, scanning the path with a mixture of anticipation and disbelief. A taxi pulled up, and Chloe stepped out, carrying a small bag. She looked different, older, the lines of life etched subtly on her face. But her eyes still held that familiar spark, that mischievous glint he remembered. Their eyes met across the park, a silent acknowledgement of the decade that had passed, the unspoken words, the old hurt, the silent longing. Chloe walked towards him, a hesitant smile gracing her lips, her journey across the world culminating in this single moment. Leo stood, his heart full, a profound sense of peace settling over him. They met by the bench, not with a dramatic run or a sweeping embrace, but with a quiet, profound moment of shared understanding. "Leo," Chloe said softly, her voice a gentle caress. "Chloe," he replied, just as softly, his voice thick with emotion. He reached out, his hand finding hers, gently taking it. It felt familiar, warm, a connection that time and distance had failed to sever. The winter in Paddington had broken them, but a wrong number, a fragile thread of fate, had led them back, to the same old road, to an unwritten chapter, waiting to be penned together.